stop what you are doing right now. Because what just came out of Washington and the capitals of America's closest allies is the kind of story that does not happen often. The kind of story that makes you question everything you thought you knew about American power and global loyalty. The United States of America, the most powerful military nation on the face of this earth, just asked its allies for help. And those allies said no, not quietly, not with long diplomatic letters full of careful language. No, America's own partners, countries that have stood beside Washington for decades, countries that have fought wars alongside American soldiers, countries that call themselves friends of the United States, looked Donald Trump in the eye and said they will not be sending their ships to the Strait of Hormuz. Let that sink in for a moment. The Strait of Hormuz, that narrow strip of water sitting between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula, a stretch of ocean so small you could almost miss it on a map. But do not let the size fool you. That little strip of water controls nearly 20% of all the oil that moves across this entire planet every single day. Tankers carrying fuel for cars, for factories, for hospitals, for homes across America, Europe, Asia, and Africa all pass through that single choke point. Whoever controls that strait holds enormous power over the global economy. And right now, that strait is under threat. Iran has been making moves. Tensions have been rising. And the Trump administration decided it was time to call on its allies to show up, stand together, and protect one of the most critical waterways on Earth. It was supposed to be a show of unity, a show of strength, a message to Tehran that the free world stands together. Instead, what the world just witnessed is something that will be studied in history books and military academies for years to come. America's allies said no. Subscribe to this channel right now, because what comes next in this story gets deeper, more complicated, and far more consequential than most people realize. This is not just about ships and oil. This is about the future of American leadership in the world. And this channel is going to break it down so clearly that nobody leaves this video confused. Stay locked in. Now, to understand why this moment is so significant, you have to understand what the Strait of Hormuz actually means to the world. Picture a doorway, a single doorway that every oil tanker on Earth must pass through to deliver fuel to the global economy. There is no alternative route. There is no back door. If that doorway closes, or even if it simply becomes too dangerous to use, the consequences hit every country on Earth almost immediately. Saudi Arabia ships its oil through there. Iraq ships its oil through there. Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, all of them depend on that single narrow passage to get their energy to the world. And the world depends on that energy to function. Now, Iran knows this. Iran has always known this, and for decades. Whenever tensions rise between Tehran and the West, Iran's first move is to point at that strait and remind everyone what it can do if pushed too far. Iranian military boats have harassed tankers in those waters before. Iran has seized vessels. Iran has threatened to shut the whole passage down completely. These are not empty threats. They have the military capability and the geographic position to cause serious disruption. So when the Trump administration looked at the rising tension in that region and decided to build a coalition of allied naval forces to protect those waters, it was not an unreasonable ask. It was the kind of thing America has done before, and the kind of thing allies are supposed to show up for. But this time, something different happened. Key allies began making calculations, and those calculations did not add up in Washington's favor. Europe is already stretched. Relations between several European governments and the Trump administration have been tense over trade disputes, NATO funding arguments, and disagreements over how to handle Iran diplomatically. Some of these governments have been quietly pursuing their own dialogue with Tehran, trying to keep the nuclear deal conversation alive, trying to avoid exactly the kind of military escalation that a naval buildup in the Strait of Hormuz would signal. Showing up with warships alongside Trump sends a message those governments are not prepared to send right now. And so they declined. This channel is going to keep breaking this story down piece by piece. So stay right here, because what comes next explains exactly which allies said no and why their reasons matter far more than most people think. So who exactly said no? And why does it matter which countries these are? Because this is not a group of small, insignificant nations with no military weight. These are serious countries. Countries with real navies, real intelligence capabilities, and long histories of standing beside America when things got difficult. The fact that they are stepping back now tells a story that goes far beyond this single request. European nations are at the center of this refusal. And to understand why, you have to understand the complicated relationship that has developed between Europe and the Trump administration over the past several months. Trade tariffs have created real economic tension between Washington and its European partners. There have been public disagreements over how much European nations should be contributing to NATO. There have been sharp exchanges between American officials and European leaders that played out not in private diplomatic channels, but openly in press conferences and on social media for the entire world to see. The warmth that traditionally characterizes the relationship between America and its closest allies has cooled considerably. And when you ask a partner who is already feeling disrespected to send their sailors into one of the most dangerous waterways on Earth to support your foreign policy position, that partner starts doing a very careful calculation. The calculation goes like this. If something goes wrong in the Strait of Hormuz, if a ship gets hit, if sailors die, if Iran retaliates, those European governments will have to explain to their own people why their soldiers are dying for an end. American policy they were never fully consulted on. That is a very hard conversation to have with voters back home. And right now, every European leader is acutely aware of their domestic political situation. There is also the Iran diplomacy question. Several European governments have spent years trying to maintain some form of communication with Tehran. They believe, rightly or wrongly, that dialogue is the only long-term solution to the Iranian nuclear threat. Sending warships into the Strait of Hormuz alongside an American administration that has taken a maximum pressure approach to Iran does not just complicate that diplomacy, it potentially destroys it entirely. So the refusal is not simply about ships. It is about strategy. It is about sovereignty. It is about the future of how these countries want to engage with a very dangerous part of the world. And it leaves America in a position it is not accustomed to, standing largely alone. Stay with this channel because what this means for Trump's next move is something every person watching needs to understand. So what does America do now? Because this is the question that matters most. The request went out. The allies said no. And the Strait of Hormuz does not become less dangerous simply because coalition partners decline to show up. The threat is still there. Iran is still there. The tankers still need to pass through. And the Trump administration now has to decide how to respond to a situation that just became significantly more complicated. There are several paths forward, and none of them are simple. The first option is to proceed alone. America has the most powerful navy on Earth. Aircraft carriers, destroyers, submarines, surveillance assets that no other country can match. Washington could decide that if allies will not come, then America will protect those waters unilaterally and make it very clear to Iran that any interference with international shipping will be met with immediate and overwhelming force. That sends a strong message. But it also places the entire burden, financial, military, and political, squarely on American shoulders, and it raises a very uncomfortable question inside Washington. If America is doing all the work and taking all the risks, why are allies benefiting from the protection without contributing anything? The second option is diplomacy. Pull back from the military posture, return to the negotiating table, and try to reach some kind of understanding with Iran that reduces the tension around the strait without a direct confrontation. This is the path several European allies would prefer. But the Trump administration has shown very little appetite for that approach. Maximum pressure has been the strategy and walking it back. Now, especially after allies have publicly declined to help, could look like weakness at exactly the wrong moment. The third option is pressure. Not military pressure on Iran, but political pressure on the allies themselves. Trump has never been shy about calling out countries he feels are not pulling their weight. It is entirely possible that the response to these refusals comes in the form of public statements, trade threats, or pointed questions about why America should continue guaranteeing the security of nations that will not stand beside it. When asked, that third option carries its own enormous risks, because pushing allies away at a moment of genuine strategic tension does not make America stronger. It makes the entire Western alliance weaker, and a weaker Western alliance is exactly what Iran, Russia, and China are hoping to see. The world is watching how Washington handles this rejection. And the decision made in the next few days will shape alliances, strategies, and global security for years to come. Stay right here, because the final part of this story brings everything together in a way that will change how you see this situation completely. Here is where everything lands. What the world just witnessed is not simply a diplomatic disagreement about ships and waterways. What the world just witnessed is a crack, a visible, undeniable crack in the foundation of the Western alliance that has held the global order together since the end of the Second World War. For decades, American power rested on two things: military strength and alliances, the weapons and the friendships. Take away one, and the other becomes significantly less effective. A powerful military with no allies is just an army. But a powerful military surrounded by committed partners who share the same vision, the same values, and the same willingness to act together, that is something far more formidable. That is what kept the peace for 80 years. And right now, that second pillar is showing serious strain. Iran is watching this. China is watching this. Russia is watching this. Every government that has ever felt constrained by American-led coalitions is watching this moment very carefully and drawing very important conclusions. The conclusion is simple. America's allies are not automatically going to follow America anymore. And if you wait long enough, if you apply enough pressure in the right places, the coalition fractures. That is a dangerous lesson for the world to be learning right now, because the Strait of Hormuz situation is not going away. Oil still flows through there. Tensions with Iran are still rising. And the window for resolving this through strength and unity just got narrower because the unity is no longer guaranteed. For ordinary people watching from every part of the world, the consequences of what happens next in that strait will be felt in fuel prices, food costs, and economic stability. This is not a story for foreign policy experts alone. This is a story for every family, every worker, every person who fills a tank or buys food or pays an electricity bill. The world changed a little last night, not with a bang, not with a missile, but with a quiet refusal from allies who decided that this time they would not be showing up. Subscribe to this channel, share this video, because the developments coming out of this story in the next few weeks will be some of the most consequential news of this entire year. And this channel will be here breaking it all down in plain, simple language every single time.